The crowd burst into laughter, but not the polite kind. The kind that shakes the room when someone says what everyone's been thinking. Jimmy Carr stood there, smirking under the stage lights, and tore into Meghan Markle like no one had dared to before. He called her a lifelong feminist who proved it by marrying a prince and giving up her job, and the room erupted. It wasn't just a joke. It was a hit to the royal brand, a punchline that turned into a public verdict. And as the cameras rolled, one question hung in the air. Had Meghan Markle's carefully built image just been destroyed on live TV, the joke that triggered it all?
Pretty good joke. I said Meghan Markle is, of course, a lifelong feminist, which she's demonstrated by marrying a prince and giving up her job.
Yeah, that's
I'm not.
It started with one line that made the entire room explode. Jimmy Carr stood under those hot studio lights, grinning in that signature razor-edged way of his, and went straight for the jugular. Meghan Markle, he began, pausing just long enough for the tension to thicken, is of course a lifelong feminist, which she's demonstrated by marrying a prince and giving up her job. The audience howled. It wasn't just a punchline, it was a reality check dressed as comedy. In that split second, Carr turned Meghan's brand image on its head. The modern feminist princess narrative that had been carefully polished for years suddenly looked hollow, and everyone watching could feel it.
People are disappointed by the name Archie. But there's one person who's super excited, the Queen. Yeah, because for the last 9 months, she's been like, please don't be Jamal, please don't be Jamal.
Then came the second hit, sharper, riskier, and even more shocking. And I know some people were disappointed by the name Archie, he said, leaning into the microphone. But there's one person who's super excited, the Queen. Because for the last 9 months, she's been like, please don't be Jamal. Gasps, laughter, disbelief. It was chaos. The joke was brutal, yes, but it cut to the heart of the uncomfortable race conversation that had followed Meghan and Harry since their Oprah interview. It was Carr's way of saying out loud what everyone else only whispered. For a comedian whose entire career thrives on crossing the line, this was vintage Jimmy, provocative, fearless, and painfully accurate.
Prince Harry is very much our Kanye.
He wasn't done. With the crowd still reeling, Carr compared Prince Harry to Kanye West. The royal family's own Kanye, he quipped, linking the prince's erratic public behavior, emotional interviews, and unpredictable media outbursts to one of pop culture's most polarizing figures. It was the kind of comparison that sticks, the kind that instantly changes how people see someone. Suddenly, Harry wasn't the misunderstood prince anymore. He was the unpredictable celebrity, the royal rebel with a flair for drama. You could almost feel the air change. The audience laughed, but beneath the humor was a sharp edge of truth that made people squirm a little. And that's what made the moment so powerful. Carr didn't just joke about Meghan and Harry, he dismantled their entire narrative piece by piece. From Meghan's acting career on Suits, the show people only watch when nothing else is, to their public statements about splitting time between the UK and Canada while still benefiting from taxpayer money, every punchline hit like a spotlight exposing contradictions. Meghan's feminist image, Harry's rebel act, their claims of privacy while chasing media deals, it all suddenly felt like a performance. And Carr's live monologue was the first time someone said it without hesitation. What made it hit harder was that it wasn't hidden behind a podcast or a late-night snippet. It was live TV, no cuts, no filters, no carefully edited press clips to soften the blow. You could see every reaction, hear every gasp, and feel every uncomfortable laugh ripple through the audience. This wasn't just another roast, it was a televised reckoning. Carr's delivery was fast, sharp, and fearless, and he knew exactly what he was doing. Breaking a silent rule. The entertainment world had been treating Meghan and Harry with kid gloves, afraid to touch the royal-turned-celebrity couple. But with one routine, Jimmy Carr gave everyone permission to laugh again, to question the image they'd been sold. That night, something shifted. It wasn't just comedy, it was the start of an avalanche. Within weeks, other comedians, talk shows, and even satirical sketches followed suit, poking fun at the royal couple without restraint. Carr had cracked the code. He proved that once the laughter starts, no amount of PR polish can cover the cracks. And for Meghan and Harry, it marked the moment the world stopped taking their story at face value. the wider comedy assault.
Took us a while, but we're finally moved in. Won't need these anymore. Can crowns go in the recycling bin?
Once Jimmy Carr cracked that first joke, it was like the whole comedy world took a deep breath and then went for the kill. What started as one sharp roast turned into a full-blown entertainment pile-on. For years, comedians had walked on eggshells around Meghan and Harry, afraid to be labeled insensitive or cruel. But Carr's unapologetic jabs made something clear. The royal couple's untouchable image had finally expired. Suddenly, everyone, from late-night hosts to legendary stand-ups, had something to say, and none of it was flattering.
We're just a regular couple living close to Oprah and far from the paparazzi. Woo! But not too far.
The best thing is, no more following Granny's.
The British satire show Spitting Image jumped in next, and they didn't hold back. The puppet versions of Meghan and Harry were merciless, portraying the couple as totally delusional about their so-called normal life in California. One moment, puppet Meghan bragged about living close to Oprah but not too far from paparazzi. And the next, puppet Harry was dancing around, celebrating his freedom while still acting like a spoiled royal. The brilliance of it was in how ordinary it made their absurd lifestyle look. Lavish mansions, endless interviews, and constant contradictions all reduced to punchlines. Viewers didn't just laugh, they nodded. The joke wasn't just about the royals, it was about the ridiculous gap between their words and their actions.
You're so racist, you're so racist. Some of that you went through was not racism. It was just some in-law. Sometimes it's just some in-law. How brown the baby was gonna be. They're so racist. They wanted to know how brown the baby's gonna be. I'm like, that's not racist.
Then came Chris Rock. When one of the most respected Black comedians the world takes aim at your biggest talking point. It's over. During his Netflix special, Rock dismantled Meghan's claims of royal racism with the kind of dry, fearless delivery that makes truth sting harder than any insult. "The royal family," he said, "they're the original racists." The crowd roared, but Rock wasn't done. He pointed out Meghan's infamous claim that a royal asked how dark her baby's skin might be, and instead of treating it like a scandal, he brushed it off as normal curiosity. "Even Black families ask that," he said, turning what Meghan framed as a wound into a universal joke. That one line didn't just land, it flipped her whole narrative. When Chris Rock, of all people, says your racism story doesn't hold up, it's not comedy anymore, it's cultural commentary. As more comedians piled in, a new phrase started floating around: paid for nothing. It summed up what everyone was starting to feel. Harry and Meghan were getting multi-million-dollar deals from Netflix and Spotify, yet producing almost no content. Late-night hosts like Joe Coy and talk shows joked that their job seemed to be cashing in on privacy. It wasn't cruel, it was brutally accurate. The idea that the couple could complain about press intrusion while staging high-production interviews or documentaries became irresistible comedic fuel. Every contradiction they tried to smooth over became a setup for another joke. The irony was that most comedians weren't even being mean, they were being observant. They were pointing out what the public had quietly noticed but hadn't said aloud. How can you preach about mental health while living in a $14 million mansion? How can you say you want a normal life while signing deals to film every part of it? These weren't just jokes, they were reflections of a cultural shift. And that's the real story here. Once Carr broke the ice, the entire entertainment industry followed. Late-night monologues, SNL sketches, podcasts, stand-up specials. It was like the floodgates had opened. The fear of offending Meghan and Harry vanished overnight, replaced by laughter that felt honest instead of polite. What started as a few one-liners became something bigger, a collective realization that the world was done pretending. The royal couple had become something no celebrity ever wants to be, the punchline everyone agrees on. Why it hit the way. It hit differently because this wasn't just about a few jokes. It was about pulling the mask off a brand that had been built on ideals. Meghan and Harry had spent years crafting their image around authenticity, vulnerability, and progressive values. They weren't just celebrities. They were supposed to be symbols of change. But when Jimmy Carr and the rest of the comedy world began tearing into that image, those values suddenly looked less like truths and more like marketing slogans. That's why the laughter felt sharper. Comedy works best when it pokes holes in what people are already doubting, and by the time Carr took the stage, the world had already started questioning whether Meghan and Harry's message still matched their lifestyle. For years, their public persona had been wrapped in carefully managed interviews and documentaries, full of lighting, editing, and emotional storytelling. But comedy doesn't allow for that polish. Live TV is raw. It's a split second of honesty that no PR team can rewrite. That's what made Carr's jokes so explosive. He said what people whispered privately, but out loud, under bright lights, in front of millions. In that moment, all the scripted speeches and tearful interviews didn't matter. What people saw was how fragile their image really was when someone stripped away the glamour and called out the contradictions. And those contradictions had been building for a while. Meghan had left acting, married into royalty, and then walked away from it all to become a global brand built on speaking her truth. Harry, once the rebellious prince, was now selling books, documentaries, and podcasts about escaping the spotlight while chasing new ones. The royal celebrity model they created made people uneasy because it felt like they wanted all the fame but none of the responsibility. So when Carr joked about them spending taxpayer money, or when other comedians mocked their desire for normal lives, it resonated. These were not random jokes. They were reflections of public frustration. What made it sting even more was how universal the humor became. Carr's British wit had global reach because everyone understood the themes: privilege, hypocrisy, and self-pity. It didn't matter whether you were in London, Toronto, or Los Angeles. People could relate to the absurdity of wealthy royals complaining about how hard fame was. The punchlines were cultural equalizers. Everyone watching felt like they were finally hearing someone say what they'd been thinking for years, only funnier. Another reason it hit so hard is that Carr went after two public figures who had come to represent very different worlds. Meghan symbolized the modern woman fighting outdated traditions, while Harry symbolized the man rebelling against the crown. Together, they were supposed to rewrite what royalty meant in the 21st century. But Carr's jokes shattered that illusion, asking a simple but devastating question: who are they really? Are they the brave outsiders they claim to be? Or just another celebrity couple chasing relevance? In the end, the jokes worked because they weren't mean. They were true. They captured a feeling that had been growing in silence, that maybe the fairy tale had gone off script. People weren't laughing because they hated Meghan and Harry. They were laughing because they finally understood the irony of it all. And when humor exposes truth that power can't hide, it doesn't just land, it lingers. The fallout and what it means. The fallout was immediate. Within hours of Jimmy Carr's roast airing, social media went into meltdown. Clips of his jokes about Meghan and Harry flooded timelines, gathering millions of views. Some people were crying with laughter, calling it the funniest thing they'd seen in years, while others were furious, labeling the jokes tasteless and cruel. Hashtags like Jimmy Carr and Meghan Markle trended side by side, showing just how divided the public had become. For every comment praising Carr for saying what others were too afraid to, there was another calling him insensitive or out of line. But the most telling reaction didn't come from fans. It came from Hollywood itself. Insiders and fellow comedians weren't condemning Carr, they were quietly clapping. That's when it hit. This wasn't just about one night of jokes. It was a sign that the industry tide had turned. When people inside entertainment start making fun of your relevance, not your fame, it means something deeper has shifted. Meghan and Harry had spent years trying to control their story through interviews, documentaries, and heartfelt speeches. But you can't PR your way out of satire. Comedy has a way of freezing a public figure in a single image, and that image tends to stick. Suddenly, Meghan wasn't seen as the brave truth-teller, and Harry wasn't the misunderstood rebel. They were the couple everyone was rolling their eyes at, the Hollywood version of poor little rich kids. Once you become a punchline, it's hard to be taken seriously again. The damage to their brand was undeniable. Their multi-million-dollar deals with Netflix and Spotify already faced questions about substance, and now the jokes added fuel to the fire. Every mention of getting paid for nothing reminded people how little the couple had actually delivered. Even more damaging was how the royal family, once accused of being outdated, began to look more composed and consistent compared to the California exiles. The royal institution didn't have to say a word. Comedians were doing their PR for them. It was one of those rare moments when silence became the smarter strategy. For celebrity activism as a whole, the moment was eye-opening. Meghan and Harry had built their public image around mental health, equality, and compassion. But when your personal life contradicts your message, when you're preaching simplicity while living in luxury, it invites ridicule. Comedy became the weapon of accountability, showing that even those who claim moral high ground aren't beyond mockery. The audience wasn't rejecting the causes they spoke about. They were rejecting the hypocrisy they saw behind them. The bigger question now is, can they recover? Once the world starts laughing at you instead of with you, how do you rewrite that narrative? They can't undo the jokes or the memes, and every new interview risks becoming more material for comedians to use. The irony is, the same openness that once made them relatable now makes them easy targets. They've shared too much, and the mystery that once protected their image is gone. In the end, this wasn't just about a joke, it was about power. For years, Hollywood shielded its elite from ridicule, but that era might be over. When comedians, talk shows, and fans unite in laughter instead of reverence, it changes everything. The Meghan and Harry saga showed that authenticity can't be manufactured, and that audiences are far smarter than PR teams think. What began as a roast became a reset, a moment when the media reminded its stars that no one, not even a duke and duchess, is above a good punchline. Final thoughts. It's easy to laugh at a moment like this. Watching a comedian tear into a royal couple on live TV feels like pure entertainment, sharp, funny, and unfiltered. But beneath the laughter, something bigger is happening. What Jimmy Carr did wasn't just comedy, it was a cultural checkpoint. It showed how fame works now, how quickly the curtain can fall, and how no amount of royal mystique or Hollywood branding can protect anyone from public scrutiny once the jokes start to stick. Think about it. Meghan Markle's story began as a modern fairy tale. An actress marries a prince, leaves her old life behind, and becomes a global symbol of progress. But fame today isn't built to last on fairy tales, it's built on perception. The moment that perception cracks, the world stops clapping and starts laughing. Marrying royalty, leaving careers, and building media empires all come with a cost, and that cost is constant examination. Every word, every deal, every authentic confession gets picked apart. And when a comedian like Carr pulls the thread, the whole image starts to unravel in front of millions. What's fascinating is how the power dynamic has shifted. Years ago, it was the tabloids and the press that royals feared. Now, it's the comedians. Late-night hosts, stand-ups, and sketch shows can do more damage in a 5-minute segment than a month of bad headlines. Why? Because humor hits differently. It bypasses defenses. When people laugh, they're also agreeing. A joke that works means an idea has already taken root in the public's mind. Meghan and Harry's team can issue all the statements they want, but they can't compete with the viral punchline that paints them as out of touch. For Meghan and Harry, this might be their biggest challenge yet. Not the palace, not the press, but perception itself. Once the entertainment industry turns you into a running gag, it's almost impossible to reclaim seriousness. The same late-night shows that once championed their independence now mock their contradictions. Their every move risks becoming a meme before it becomes a message. It's not cruelty, it's the nature of modern fame. Authenticity sells until it starts looking fake, and then the audience flips the script. Maybe that's why moments like this matter more than they seem. They reveal how much of celebrity culture is performance, how easily sincerity can turn into spectacle. We live in a world where being real is a brand, and brands are built to be consumed. Meghan and Harry built theirs on honesty, vulnerability, and rebellion, but when those qualities start to feel rehearsed, comedy becomes the great equalizer. Laughter doesn't lie. It exposes what press releases can't hide. So yes, Jimmy Carr's roast was hilarious, but it was also something else. A reminder that fame today isn't about status, it's about trust. And once the laughter starts, it's almost impossible to get that trust back. Maybe the real question isn't whether Meghan and Harry can recover. Maybe it's for all of us watching. The next time a public figure sells us their pain or authenticity, Will we believe it, or will we already be waiting for the joke? Because sometimes the funniest part of the story is also the truth. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.